There's something about dawn in late October that makes even the hardiest New Englanders pull their jackets a little tighter, like the cold is reaching past your bones for something deeper. The sky over Greenwood Veterans Cemetery is the color of ash, the kind of pale gray that promises rain even when it holds back. The grass here is patchy, and tombstones tilt at tired angles, many caked with lichen and thyme. On most mornings, the place is forgotten, except for the crows. But on this particular Saturday, as the first threads of sunlight struggle through the mist, a hunched figure appears at the old iron gate. His gait is slow, deliberate. His left knee is stiff, right shoulder lower than the left, as if one half of him still remembers a wound. He's wearing a faded brown bomber jacket, army green slacks with creases that haven't left since Eisenhower was president, and a navy blue cap that simply reads Veteran in gold. This is Samuel Sam Davis, 79, with hands the size of catcher's mitts, a white mustache so neatly trimmed it seems military regulation, and a pair of eyes that have seen both the worst and the best in men. He moves like he's counting steps, 27 paces from the gate to the grave he visits each week. In his right hand, he carries a carefully folded American flag. In his left, a battered thermos of black coffee. He stops at the same grave every time. Leo Bishop, 1947, 1970. The headstone is plain, chipped at one corner, and nearly swallowed by crabgrass. No flowers, no family marker, nothing to say anyone else has been here in years. Sam stands there for a moment, just breathing, as the mist curls around his ankles. Then, with a precision that's almost jarring in this place of neglect, he straightens his spine and raises his right hand in salute, a perfect military salute, crisp and unwavering, held for a count of 3. Not for show, but for memory. What Sam doesn't know, not at first, is that high above him, in the branches of an old sycamore, a drone is whirring softly, capturing the whole scene from above. The drone belongs to Jaden Carter, 17, who's sitting cross-legged on the roof of his mom's minivan at the cemetery edge, his hoodie pulled up against the chill, watching the tiny screen on his phone. Jaden's a local kid, always messing with gadgets, making skate videos or streaming games at night. This week he's doing a project for his journalism class about the forgotten corners of our town. He wasn't expecting to find much here. Maybe some creepy shots for his TikTok. Maybe some raccoons if he was lucky. Instead, his cameras caught the slow, careful ritual of an old man talking to a grave. Jaden zooms in as Sam kneels down and brushes away leaves from the stone, lips moving in silent conversation. Jaden doesn't have audio on the drone, but the shot is weirdly beautiful. The frail, determined figure against rows of battered stones and morning fog. He captions the video in bold. Old man talks to graves every Saturday. What's the story? He posts it on his channel, half as a joke, half out of curiosity. Back at the cemetery, Sam finishes clearing the grave. He takes the folded flag and lays it gently across the cold stone. He closes his eyes, leans forward until his forehead almost touches the marble, and whispers, "Morning, Leo. I'm back, like always." He stays that way for a minute, the world holding its breath, then stands and pours a little coffee onto the ground, an old soldier's toast for fallen friends. He takes a long sip himself, then turns to go, boots crunching on gravel. A crow lands on the fence post as he passes, cocking its head. Yeah, I see you," Sam mutters, voice gruff but kind. "Still guarding the place? Good bird." He slips through the gate, walks down the empty street toward his battered pickup, and vanishes into the waking world. In his mind, the day ahead is just chores, groceries, maybe patching the leaky roof if the rain holds off. But elsewhere, the world is waking up to something different. Jaden's video gets a trickle of views, then a rush. People in town share it, tagging each other, guessing about the old man at the grave. Comments pour in. Asterisk, some kind of weird ritual? Asterisk, that's so sad. Doesn't he have any family? Asterisk, dude's probably lost his mind. Asterisk, respect. That's what a real American looks like. Most are mocking or glib, but one comment stands out. Posted by a user named IronMike67. Profile pic of a faded purple heart ribbon. I know that salute. That's not for show. Within a day, the video explodes. Local Facebook groups argue over who the man is. Twitter threads debate if it's real or staged. A radio host in the next county talks about the mystery man who salutes the dead. Soon news vans roll into town, their antennas stabbing the sky, reporters in puffy jackets staking out the cemetery. But for Sam Davis, none of this matters yet. For him, Saturday morning is about one thing: showing up, doing what he's done for the last 20 years. He doesn't know that his quiet ritual has become a kind of strange, viral phenomenon. He doesn't know that, out in the digital wild, his life is about to get complicated. All he knows is this: some men leave a legacy carved in marble, some leave it in silence. The next Saturday, when Sam returns, the cemetery will no longer be empty. The world, which had long forgotten this place, is now watching. And the old man with the perfect salute, who never wanted a spotlight, will find himself standing in it, whether he likes it or not. The following Saturday, Greenwood Veterans Cemetery isn't just quiet and cold. It's surrounded by a growing storm of curiosity. Well before dawn, vans with local news logos are parked along the cracked asphalt. Their headlights slash through the mist. Camera crews huddle in windbreakers, and a few over-caffeinated interns nervously check battery packs and microphones. It's as if the ordinary broken-down cemetery has become the epicenter of the whole town. Jaden Carter arrives early too. This time he leaves the drone at home. There's no way he's going to fly it with this many eyes watching. He's both excited and a little guilty. His video has gotten over 50,000 views, his phone blowing up with texts from people he barely remembers from middle school. Some people think he's clever. Others call him a vulture. His mom, seeing the video on Facebook, told him to be respectful. Jaden stands awkwardly at the back, hands jammed into his hoodie, unsure if he's a journalist or just a kid who started something he can't control. The reporters murmur when an old, battered Ford pickup pulls up next to the cemetery gate. Samuel Davis steps out, slower than last week, maybe feeling the weight of all those eyes on him. His face is set, unreadable. He wears the same uniform as always: jacket, slacks, veteran's cap. But today, his movements are even more deliberate, as if he knows every step will be scrutinized. The moment he passes through the iron gate, cameras lurch into action. Flashes pop, lenses whir, microphones extend on long poles like fishing rods. "Sir, are you the man from the video? Why do you come here every Saturday? What's the significance of this grave? Are you related to Leo Bishop? Did you serve together?" Sam doesn't answer. He keeps his gaze straight ahead, lips pressed into a thin, stubborn line. The ritual matters more than these questions, more than the circus surrounding him. A young, eager reporter, a woman with a local news badge and perfect hair, steps directly into his path. "Mr. Davis, people all over the country are talking about your devotion. Why this grave? Why Leo Bishop?" Sam stops just short of her, his eyes steady and cool. For a moment, it's so quiet you can hear the distant rumble of a garbage truck 3 blocks away. He says nothing. He just stares until the reporter, flustered, drops her gaze and steps aside. Sam walks the measured 27 steps to Leo's grave. Today, the grass is trampled by dozens of footprints, and the stone, freshly exposed from the recent attention, gleams damp in the morning light. The folded flag in Sam's hand trembles, not from nerves, but from age, from memory. He kneels, ignoring the swarm of cameras that edge closer, microphones catching every breath, every rustle of his jacket. He brushes off the stone, just as before, then stands and raises his hand in salute. He holds it a full 5 seconds this time, unwavering. Someone whispers, "Look at that. Perfect form." A cameraman, perhaps emboldened by the silence, edges closer and tries to provoke a response. "Sir, do you have any words for Leo's family, for the people watching?" Still nothing. Sam's expression remains granite. But then, as he lays the folded flag on the grave, his voice, cracked, deep, unmistakably firm, finally emerges. He doesn't look at the cameras, just speaks to the ground. "I wasn't there when he fell, but I've stood here every day since." It's not the answer anyone expected. For a second, the press are stunned. There's a weight to those words, an ache, a promise, and a burden. Before anyone can follow up, Sam turns, shoulders squared, and begins walking toward the gate. A camera crew blocks his way, but he simply steps around them, moving like a battleship slicing through a crowd of dinghies. Only Jaden stands aside, clutching a single sunflower he'd picked from his backyard. He wants to say something, anything, but the words stick in his throat. As Sam reaches his truck, someone shouts, "Are you a hero, Mr. Davis?" Sam pauses, back turned. He lets the question hang in the air, then shakes his head, almost imperceptibly, and climbs into his truck. The engine coughs, backfires, then finally rumbles to life. He pulls away, leaving the reporters to squabble over sound bites and B-roll. Back at the cemetery, the mood shifts. Some reporters look sheepish, others frustrated. The local official from the Department of Public Works, clipboard in hand, surveys the scene. "We'll need to clean this up. Too much foot traffic for this old ground," she mutters, already making plans for landscaping and fencing, thinking more about how the place looks on TV than what it means. Jaden lingers by Leo's grave, the flower still in his hand. He kneels, imitating Sam's careful movements, and places the sunflower by the headstone. For the first time, he notices the other graves, rows upon rows, names faded, some with nothing more than "unknown soldier." The whole place seems to hold its breath. Online, the footage of Sam's confrontation with the press spreads even faster than the original video. Clips of his brief statement are replayed on local news, then picked up by national outlets. "I wasn't there when he fell, but I've stood here every day since." People argue about what it means. Some say he's a hero. Others mock the solemnity. But a growing number begin to ask about Leo Bishop, who he was, why no one else visits. That night, in a cluttered newsroom downtown, a veteran reporter named Greg Masters watches the footage on repeat. He sees something in Sam's posture, the unflinching resolve, the pain behind the silence. He starts making calls, digging into records, convinced there's more to this than a viral moment. Meanwhile, Sam returns home. The journey takes him through the back streets of a town that's changed around him. New condos rising where old factories used to stand. He doesn't listen to the radio. He's had enough of other people's noise. Instead, he drives in silence, the folded flag still on the passenger seat. In the privacy of his small, weathered mobile home, Sam sits heavily at his kitchen table. The walls are covered with maps, each one marked with names, red pins, handwritten notes in careful block letters. Next to the maps, dozens of letters, each addressed to a family he's never met, each containing a story of a grave, a date, a name no one else remembers. Sam picks up a pen and begins writing. He doesn't write about the press or the attention. He writes about Leo, about the laugh that echoed across rice paddies in a country far away, about the promise he made to a friend in the dark, about what it means to stand watch when the world forgets. Outside, the sky bruises purple, and rain begins to tap the tin roof. Sam pours himself a cup of old coffee, sits at the window, and watches the storm roll in. In his lap sits a battered shoebox labeled, "For when they finally ask." He isn't sure who they are, or if they'll ever come. But tonight, for the first time in years, Sam allows himself a small hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone is finally listening. Back at the edge of town, where new development runs out and the wild grass begins, Sam Davis lives quietly in a battered mobile home parked under a sprawling, half-dead oak. The outside is a faded blue, patched and repatched with whatever Sam could salvage. Old election signs, strips of tar paper, duct tape so faded it's turned the color of dust. His yard is an uneven patchwork of dandelions, sun-bleached plastic lawn chairs, and a flagpole with the rope tied in 3 different knots to keep it from sagging. Inside, the mobile home is small and cluttered, but everything has its place. On the kitchen table, a chipped mug reads, "Best Grandpa Ever," though no one's called him that in years. The walls are a testament to decades of quiet devotion, rows of thumbtacked maps, each one marked with pins and notations in careful, blocky handwriting. Names, dates, grave numbers, short notes like "Purple Heart, no next of kin," "Vietnam left behind, deserves a visit." There are letters everywhere, some stacked in piles, others tucked into shoeboxes labeled by year. Each letter is addressed to a stranger. To the family of Corporal David Lynn, Greenwood Cemetery, Plot 54. To anyone who remembers Specialist Rosa Martinez, 1968-1969. Each one contains a few lines about the soldier, what Sam knows, what he's learned from dusty records and quiet conversations with other old men, and what he wishes he could say to the living. He mails some. Most are returned unopened. Still, he writes a new one every night. Sam's routine is as disciplined as any barracks. Wake at dawn, coffee black and hot, sweep the steps, feed the cats. Stray cats have always found their way to Sam's door. He leaves out leftovers, sometimes just a piece of bread or the last few bites of canned tuna. The cats have names: Graytail, Boots, Lady, each with their own story and claim to a particular corner of the porch. His hands, though thick and scarred, are surprisingly gentle as he repairs an old pair of boots in the living room. The boots belonged to a friend who never made it back. The soles are coming apart, the leather cracked and worn, but Sam works quietly, threading a needle through heavy canvas, making the repair hold a little longer. Sometimes, when his arthritis flares, he grits his teeth and mutters, "Stubborn as an old mule." But he keeps working. The boots are never worn. They're just another promise kept, another bit of memory refusing to fade. On the wall above his tiny writing desk hangs a battered wooden box. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, is a Purple Heart, a handful of faded photographs, and a single yellowed letter from the War Department. Sam opens it every year on the anniversary of Leo Bishop's death, reads it with hands trembling from age and something deeper, a sorrow that time cannot blunt. Each afternoon, Sam walks through town, hat pulled low, nodding to neighbors but rarely stopping to chat. The grocery clerk, a young woman with purple hair, always sets aside a loaf of day-old bread for him. Sometimes she tries to give him a discount, but Sam insists on paying full price. "If you don't charge me, you'll start treating me like a charity case," he says, and she smiles, seeing something in his stubbornness that she respects. Back home, Sam tends a tiny garden behind the trailer, a handful of tomatoes, a few struggling beans, and a single rose bush that refuses to bloom. He talks to the plants as he weeds. "Come on, Rosie, don't let these rabbits win." Some evenings, when the weather is good, Sam sits on the steps, boots off, socks drying on the railing, and watches the sky turn orange. He hums old army songs, sometimes singing low enough for the cats to perk up their ears. "When I get to heaven," St. Peter gonna say. But inside, Sam is not a man at peace. The buzz from the viral video has not faded. Each day, new letters arrive. Some from people offering praise, others seeking interviews, one or two from strangers who just want to tell their own stories. Sam reads each one, sorting them into two piles, real and noise. The real ones, the ones written in trembling hands, or with ink smudged from tears, he keeps in a drawer by his bed. The rest he burns quietly in the fire pit out back. Every so often, Sam opens a battered shoebox on the top shelf of his closet. The lid is scrawled in black marker, for when they finally ask. Inside is a trove of memory, photographs, maps, handwritten lists of names and dates, medals for men who never came home, and a carefully maintained ledger of every unmarked grave in Greenwood and 4 other cemeteries nearby. He spent years compiling it, one phone call and one walk at a time. He's the last living witness for many of these men and women, the only one who still remembers which stone hides which story. Sometimes he wonders why he's the last. Why has the burden of remembering fallen to him, a man who's never married, whose own family has drifted away like leaves in a storm? But the answer comes every Saturday, in the solemn silence by Leo's grave. If he doesn't remember, maybe no one will. As evening falls, Sam sits by the window, listening to the distant sound of children playing in the street. He takes out one of his old notebooks, flips to a page marked Bishop Leo, 1970. The entry is short. "Funny, kind, always shared his rations, took the worst bunk, saved me once and never let me forget it. Never got his due. No one left to tell his story but me." He stares at the words until they blur, then carefully copies them onto a fresh sheet, folds it, and tucks it into an envelope. To anyone who remembers Leo Bishop. Later that night, Sam prepares a small dinner, canned soup, bread, a few slices of tomato from the garden. He sits at the kitchen table listening to the quiet tick of the wall clock. Outside, the wind rattles the window panes. He thinks of the cemetery, of Leo, of the other names he's carried for so long. He wonders if, now that the world is watching, someone else will care. Or if they'll just move on, distracted by the next viral story, the next outrage, the next forgotten man. Before bed, Sam makes one final round of the house, checking the locks, feeding the cats again, making sure the flag is secure on its pole. He stands in the doorway, looks out at the darkness, and whispers, "See you tomorrow, Leo." Then he shuts off the light, leaving only the glow of memory burning in the quiet, cluttered home of a man who has spent his life doing what others forgot. On the following Saturday, Greenwood Veterans Cemetery is quieter than it has been in weeks. The news vans have drifted away, chasing fresher stories. The social media buzz has faded into the background noise of trending hashtags and clickbait. But Jaden Carter, the teenager who started it all with his drone, is still thinking about the old man with the perfect salute and the grave everyone else forgot. Jaden didn't sleep well the night before. Guilt gnawed at him. After the video went viral, he had a taste of internet fame. New followers, DMs from strangers, even a teacher who congratulated him on shining a light on local history. But Jaden felt uncomfortable with the attention. He hadn't really set out to honor anyone. He was just curious, maybe even a little bored, looking for something interesting to post. Now he couldn't get Sam Davis or the grave out of his head. Early that morning, Jaden makes a decision. He walks down to the town florist using money saved from mowing lawns and picks out a bouquet. Nothing fancy, just simple wildflowers. He's not sure what you're supposed to bring to a grave. The florist, a kindly woman named Mrs. Yamada, doesn't ask questions. She wraps the bouquet and hands it to him with a knowing smile. With the flowers in hand, Jaden bikes out to the cemetery, slowing as he reaches the old iron gate. He spots Sam's battered pickup parked by the curb, the driver's door already open. For a moment, Jaden hesitates, anxiety bubbling up inside him. What if Sam gets angry? What if he thinks Jaden's just another kid looking for internet points? But Jaden pushes through, heart pounding, and walks the familiar 27 paces to Leo Bishop's grave. Sam is already there, kneeling, his hand resting lightly on the headstone, as if in silent conversation. The sight is both solemn and strangely comforting. Jaden clears his throat. Sam turns, eyes narrowing slightly, but he says nothing. Jaden fumbles for words, finally offering the bouquet with both hands. Hi, Mr. Davis. I brought these. For Leo. There's a long pause. The old man's face softens just a bit. He nods. Jaden kneels beside him, careful not to disturb the ritual. He places the flowers at the foot of the grave, feeling awkward, as if intruding on something private. He stays quiet, not wanting to break the spell. Minutes pass. The only sounds are distant birds and the wind sighing through the trees. Jaden studies the other graves, most unvisited, many with names so faded they're nearly unreadable. Finally, Jaden speaks, his voice hesitant. Why this grave, Mr. Davis? Why come here every week? Sam doesn't answer right away. He stands, brushing dust from his knees, and looks down at Leo's stone. Because someone should, he says, voice quiet but firm. Jaden chews on that. He thinks of his own grandfather, who passed away before Jaden was born, how his mom always makes sure to leave flowers at his grave on birthdays and holidays. But here there's no family, just Sam. The silence stretches, but it isn't uncomfortable. Jaden finds himself looking at Sam differently now, not just as the old guy from the viral video, but as someone carrying something heavy, something Jaden can't quite understand. Were you friends? Jaden finally asks. Sam nods. We served together, Vietnam, long time ago. Jaden wants to ask more, wants to know what happened, why Sam feels responsible but senses it's not the right moment. Instead, he sits quietly, letting the old man have his space. After a while, Sam kneels again, pulls a thermos from his jacket pocket, and pours a bit of coffee onto the earth. He offers the thermos to Jaden, who declines politely, but the gesture is enough. For the first time, Sam allows Jaden to remain by his side during the ritual. A sudden gust scatters leaves across the cemetery. Jaden watches as Sam tidies the grave, his movements precise and deliberate, every gesture loaded with meaning. He thinks of all the times he's rushed through things in his own life, assignments, chores, conversations with his mom, always looking for shortcuts, always distracted. Sam, by contrast, is fully present every Saturday, rain or shine. They stay like that for almost an hour, saying little. Finally, Sam stands to leave. Thanks for the flowers, he says. His voice is rough, but there's gratitude in it. Most folks bring plastic. These'll fade, but they were real. That's what matters. Jaden nods, feeling a strange sense of pride. He stands too, brushing dirt from his jeans. If you don't mind, I'd like to come back next week. Just to sit. I won't bother you. Sam looks at him for a long moment, weighing the sincerity in Jaden's face. Then he nods. Suit yourself. As Jaden turns to leave, he glances back at the rows of silent stones, at the battered man who keeps vigil. For the first time, he feels the weight of history pressing down. A sense that these aren't just names carved in marble, but real people with stories, families, lives cut short. He pedals home slowly, the morning sun warming his back. When he gets there, he finds his mother at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and reading the news on her tablet. "Did you see him again?" she asks, not unkindly. Jaden nods, slipping the florist's receipt into his pocket. "Yeah, we didn't talk much, but I think he was glad I came." His mother smiles softly. Sometimes that's enough. Later, Jaden logs onto his social media accounts. He sees messages from people asking for updates, demanding interviews, offering sponsorships. He ignores them all. Instead, he starts researching Leo Bishop, digging through online archives, local library records, old yearbooks. He learns that Leo was drafted at 19, grew up a few towns over, played high school football, wrote poetry, and, according to a yellowed newspaper clipping, died a hero's death in a place no one can pronounce. Jaden jots down notes, slowly piecing together the outline of a life. He realizes, with a jolt, that for all the noise the internet makes, true memory comes from people like Sam. Those who show up week after week without expecting applause. The next Saturday, Jaden returns to the cemetery, this time with a notepad in his pocket. He sits quietly as Sam performs his ritual, careful not to interrupt. When the old man finishes, Jaden hands him the notepad. "I've been trying to learn about Leo," he says. "I thought maybe you could tell me something the records don't say." Sam studies the notepad for a long while, then nods. He begins to speak, softly at first, about Leo's laugh, about a time he shared a chocolate bar in a muddy foxhole, about the joke he told that made the whole squad forget the war, if only for a minute. Jaden writes it all down, the real story finally beginning to emerge, not just of Leo, but of Sam, and the quiet, stubborn power of remembering when no one else does. Word about Sam's silent vigil spreads beyond Greenwood. By midweek, the story has reached the offices of the Department of Veterans Affairs, where an eager junior staffer finds the viral video in her email inbox, flagged by 3 supervisors and forwarded by someone in Washington. Suddenly, the neglected grave of Leo Bishop and the solitary figure of Samuel Davis become a matter of public image, a case study, as one memo puts it, in community engagement and honoring our nation's heroes. By Friday, Sam receives a formal letter on government letterhead. It's folded stiff and precise, signed by an assistant director full of bureaucratic warmth. "Dear Mr. Davis, the Department of Veterans Affairs would like to honor both Leo Bishop and yourself in a public ceremony, awarding a posthumous medal to Mr. Bishop and a community service citation to you. The event will be covered by local and regional news outlets. Please RSVP at your earliest convenience." Sam stares at the letter for a long time. He sets it on the table, pours himself a cup of black coffee, and reads it again, lips tightening. He remembers other official letters, those that began with regret, ended with "thank you for your service," and changed lives in a sentence. This one feels different, but no less heavy. That night, Sam finds Jaden waiting by Leo's grave, notepad in hand. Jaden looks up eager. "Did you get the letter too? My mom said she saw it on Facebook. The VA's planning some big ceremony." Sam grunts, kneeling to clear leaves from the stone. "Didn't ask for it. Don't need it." Jaden hesitates, glancing at his notepad. "Aren't you even a little proud?" You kept Leo's memory alive when no one else did. That's got to mean something. Sam's answer is quiet but unwavering. I didn't do it for medals. I did it so he wouldn't disappear. This isn't about me. It's about him, and the rest that no one visits. His words hang in the air, sharper than usual. Later that day, the mayor's office announces plans for a beautification and media readiness project at Greenwood Cemetery. Workers in orange vests show up with weed trimmers, leaf blowers, fresh turf rolls. Yellow caution tape blocks off sections of the cemetery, while crews scrub moss from headstones and plant flags on every grave, even those labeled unknown. The project manager, a brisk woman in a suit jacket and pearls, holds a clipboard and barks orders for a fresh look in time for the cameras. Reporters arrive again, sniffing out controversy. A local news anchor corners Sam as he sits on a bench, watching the commotion. "Mr. Davis, how do you feel about the improvements to Greenwood?" Sam looks her in the eye, voice level. "It's not cleaning up, it's covering up. Real honor isn't about looking nice on TV. You can't landscape memory." The quote spreads across social media, picked up by veterans groups and local activists. Some praise Sam for keeping it real. Others accuse him of being ungrateful. The cemetery becomes a battlefield of opinion. Protesters with homemade signs, "Honor the forgotten, memory, not makeover," gather at the entrance. A few troublemakers sneak in at night, leaving behind painted rocks and anonymous letters taped to trees. Inside Sam's mobile home, letters and emails pile up. Veterans from all over the country share stories of lost friends, neglected graves, the pain of being remembered only when it's convenient. One note, written in a trembling hand, reads, "My brother died in Korea. No one visits his grave but me. Thank you for reminding them that real remembrance doesn't come with a camera crew." Even Jaden's classmates start asking questions. A history teacher invites Sam to speak to the senior class, but he declines. "Not a speaker," he says, "just a witness." Jaden relays this to his friends, who debate the meaning of honor and whether social media has helped or hurt the old man's mission. Meanwhile, the local official in charge of the project, Mr. Keller, visits Sam one afternoon, clipboard in hand and a PR smile on his face. "Mr. Davis, we're grateful for your commitment," Keller says, glancing around at the news crews and freshly raked lawns. "But I hope you'll understand. We have to make sure the cemetery looks presentable for the cameras. There are certain protocols, appearances to maintain." Sam stands, looking him dead in the eye. "You want to honor these men? Come out when the cameras are gone. Come out when it's raining or nobody's watching. This," he gestures at the fresh sod and flags, "isn't memory. It's makeup." Keller's smile wavers. "With all due respect, we just want what's best for the town. The world is watching, Mr. Davis." Sam shakes his head. "The world watches for a day. I'll be here long after they forget again." That evening, Sam sits at his writing desk and pens a letter. Not to the VA, not to the mayor, but to the families whose names fill his notebooks. He writes of promises, of the quiet dignity in remembrance, of how easy it is for the world to move on. He tells them about Jaden, about the unexpected kindness of a stranger, and how hope can sometimes come from the most unlikely places. Jaden, moved by Sam's refusal to play along with the spectacle, writes an article for the school paper titled, "Not All Honor is Public." He includes a photo of Sam's hands, scarred, calloused, holding the folded flag at Leo's grave. The article spreads online, drawing both praise and criticism. But for Jaden, the important thing is that it feels true. One rainy night, Sam finds Jaden waiting at the cemetery gates, soaked but determined. Jaden hands him an umbrella. "I read your article," Sam says, a rare hint of pride in his voice. Not bad. You get it. Jaden shrugs, shy but grateful. I just wrote what I saw. Most people only see what they want to. Sam grins, the lines around his eyes deepening. You keep watching. That's what matters. As the town prepares for the big ceremony, tensions simmer just beneath the surface. Workers lay artificial turf over muddy patches. Dignitaries practice speeches in front of mirrors. But Sam keeps his ritual unchanged, arriving each Saturday, saluting Leo's grave, tending to the others that are still nameless, unseen. One morning, as he kneels by a headstone marked simply, J.D. 1953, he feels a sharp pain in his chest. He grits his teeth, ignoring the warning, and finishes his salute. Only Jaden, watching from a distance, notices Sam's hand trembling. Jaden's voice is soft but urgent. You okay, Mr. Davis? Sam forces a smile. Just tired, kid. Just tired. But even as the bureaucracy pushes forward with its plans, Sam refuses to let the story be rewritten for convenience. He guards the memory of Leo Bishop and of every forgotten soldier in Greenwood with stubborn, unyielding devotion. And as the cameras focus on the spectacle, it is Jaden and perhaps a few others who begin to see the truth beneath the surface. That remembrance, real remembrance, is an act of quiet defiance against the world's tendency to forget. Saturday arrives with the slow, gray promise of rain. Greenwood Veterans Cemetery sits hushed beneath a heavy sky, the trampled grass still bearing scars from the recent beautification project. Most of the new turf has already browned at the edges, and the flags the town planted 2 weeks ago now hang limp, battered by wind and neglect. It is, in other words, back to being forgotten, except for Sam Davis and this week, Jaden Carter. Jaden arrives earlier than usual. He brings a battered duffel bag with a thermos of hot chocolate, sandwiches he made at home, and a borrowed camera from the school's journalism club. He wants to document Sam's routine, not for likes or shares, but to preserve something real before it slips away. Jaden feels the urgency in his bones, a sense that time is moving faster, that the story he's chasing is, in truth, about holding on to what matters before it's gone. When he arrives at Leo Bishop's grave, Sam isn't there yet. Jaden sits cross-legged on the dew-soaked grass, reviewing questions he's written in a little notebook. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and clover. He waits, tracing the outline of Leo's name on the headstone, feeling the chill sink into his fingers. At precisely 7:30, the old Ford pickup pulls to a stop beside the cemetery gate. Sam steps out, shoulders hunched, moving slower than before. Jaden sees him pause at the gate, one hand gripping the iron bars, as if steadying himself for what comes next. "Morning, Mr. Davis," Jaden calls, voice cheerful to mask his worry. Sam nods, managing a faint smile. "Morning, kid." They walk together in silence. Sam's steps are shorter, his breath a bit more ragged, but his eyes are focused, clear. He stops at Leo's grave, kneels, more carefully now, and begins his ritual. He brushes leaves away, lays the flag, pours a little coffee onto the earth, and salutes. Jaden stands back, recording everything, the gravity of the moment not lost on him. But as Sam lowers his hand, his face tightens. He sags forward, bracing himself against the headstone. Jaden's heart stutters. At first he thinks Sam is just tired. But then Sam's breathing grows shallow, his grip slipping. The thermos tumbles from his hand, spilling dark coffee across the grass. "Mr. Davis?" Jaden's voice is thin with panic. He rushes forward, catching Sam as he slumps sideways, face ashen. Sam's lips move, almost silently. "The envelope. In my pocket." Jaden fumbles, hands shaking. reaching into the inner pocket of Sam's jacket. He finds a plain white envelope, thick with folded paper, the words, "To the next one who remembers," scrawled across the front. Jaden clutches it tight, then pulls out his phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. Within minutes, the distant wail of an ambulance pierces the morning stillness. Paramedics find Jaden crouched beside Sam, the old man's head resting on his lap. Jaden's jacket draped over him against the chill. Jaden barely lets go as they lift Sam onto a stretcher, but the paramedics work fast, and soon Sam is bundled into the ambulance, the siren wailing as they speed away. Jaden stands at the cemetery gates, the envelope in his hands, watching the ambulance disappear down the road. He's never felt so helpless. He calls his mom, voice shaky, and she picks him up within minutes. As they drive to the hospital, Jaden stares at the envelope, fighting the urge to open it. He remembers Sam's words, "For the next one who remembers," and feels the weight of that trust settle over him like a heavy blanket. At the hospital, the waiting room is all fluorescent lights and uneasy silence. Jaden sits hunched in a plastic chair, the envelope clutched to his chest. Nurses pass by with soft voices and sympathetic looks. Jaden's mom gets coffee from a vending machine and sits beside him, offering comfort in the form of a hand on his shoulder. After what feels like hours, a doctor approaches, white coat, tired eyes. "Are you here for Mr. Davis?" Jaden nods, scrambling to his feet. Will he be okay?" The doctor's voice is gentle. "He's stable for now. He had a collapse brought on by exhaustion and dehydration. At his age, it's serious. He's conscious, but very weak. He'll need to rest, and someone will need to keep an eye on him for a while." Jaden breathes out, tension draining from his body. "Can I see him?" The doctor nods. "He asked for you, actually." Jaden enters the small, sterile hospital room, heart pounding. Sam lies in bed, pale but alert, IV in his arm and a faint grin on his lips. "Told you, kid, just tired," Sam mutters, voice thin. Jaden laughs, fighting tears. He pulls a chair to the bedside, still holding the envelope. "You scared me, Mr. Davis." "Scared myself, to be honest," Sam replies, then points at the envelope. "You got it?" Jaden nods. "You want me to open it?" Sam shakes his head. "Not yet. It's for when I can't do this anymore. When it's your turn, or someone else's, for whoever remembers." Jaden sits quietly, absorbing the weight of what Sam is entrusting to him. The envelope suddenly feels heavier. Sam looks at the ceiling, his voice barely above a whisper. "Didn't think I'd last this long. Most of my friends didn't. Sometimes I wonder why I did. Maybe just to keep showing up. For Leo. For the others." Jaden is silent, but his hand covers Sam's, squeezing gently. There's a shared understanding between them now, something beyond words or gestures. Back at the cemetery, the news of Sam's collapse spreads quickly. A groundskeeper finds Sam's abandoned thermos, and word gets out. By late afternoon, flowers begin to appear at Leo Bishop's grave. Wildflowers, roses, even plastic arrangements from the dollar store. Someone leaves a tiny American flag. Another person leaves a note. "Thank you, Sam. We remember because you remembered first." Later, after the doctor insists Sam needs sleep, Jaden leaves the hospital room, envelope still unopened. He passes through the lobby where a local reporter, having heard the story, tries to corner him for a comment. Jaden shakes his head, determined to protect Sam's dignity, the way Sam protected Leo's. At home, Jaden sits at his desk, studying the envelope. He knows it holds something important, a legacy, maybe a set of instructions, perhaps even confessions or regrets. He wants to open it, But he resists honoring Sam's wishes. Instead, he writes about what happened in his journal, describing the way Sam collapsed, the feeling of panic, and, most of all, the overwhelming sense that the world doesn't always notice when a hero falls. The next day, Jaden visits the cemetery alone. He walks the 27 paces to Leo's grave, stands in silence, and lays his own folded note beside the new flowers. He looks at the other graves, many still nameless, and realizes that remembering is a choice. A hard, daily act, not a headline or a viral moment. Back at the hospital, Sam drifts in and out of sleep, haunted by dreams of old battles, friends' faces, and a young man named Leo who never came home. Each time he wakes, he finds Jaden's note in his hand, and it gives him strength. The world may forget, but for now someone still remembers. And outside, in the early light of Sunday, the envelope waits, its contents ready to shape what comes next, when the time is right, and the torch must be passed from one generation to the next. Jaden Carter woke early Sunday morning, long before the sun burned away the mist. He hadn't slept much. The events of the previous day replayed in his mind, the panic in Sam's eyes, the way he clutched the envelope, the gravity in his voice as he'd said, "When it's your turn." Jaden sat at his desk, the white envelope lying in front of him like an unopened future. He studied Sam's handwriting, shaky but determined. The world outside was quiet, as if the town itself was waiting to see what he'd do next. His mom tapped on his door, peeking in with concern. "Are you all right, honey?" Jaden nodded. "I think so. I have to do something for Mr. Davis." She sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "You did good, Jay. He trusts you. Just do what feels right." Jaden opened the envelope. Inside, he found a map, hand-drawn, worn at the folds, covered with tiny notes and colored pins. There was also a thick sheaf of papers, each covered in Sam's blocky script. Names, service numbers, stories, little facts about men and women who'd been laid to rest with no family left to remember them. At the bottom of the stack, a single sheet bore the words, "For whoever remembers, so they are never lost again." Jaden ran his fingers over the names, 53 in total. Each one had a number corresponding to a grave in Greenwood, some with full stories, others just a name and the word unknown. He realized that Sam had spent decades collecting these details, piecing together a puzzle everyone else had abandoned. He knew what he had to do. By 9 o'clock, Jaden stood outside the Greenwood Historical Museum, clutching the envelope and the shoebox full of Sam's notes he'd picked up from Sam's mobile home with the help of Mrs. Yamada, the florist. The museum was quiet, dust motes dancing in the shafts of light through stained glass. Jaden explained everything to Miss Hargrove, the curator, a gentle woman with silver hair and an easy smile. She listened with growing astonishment as Jaden told Sam's story, showing her the map and the painstakingly organized archive. She led Jaden to a long table in the research room. Together they spread out the map, cross-referencing it with old cemetery blueprints and faded municipal records. Miss Hargrove's eyes widened as she realized the magnitude of what Sam had compiled. "You understand what this is?" she whispered. "This is a treasure. It's a record no one else has. You and Mr. Davis, you're giving the whole town back a piece of its soul." Word spread quickly through the museum staff and then out into the community. Volunteers, veterans, history buffs, students, even a few former skeptics, flocked to the museum to help. Jaden watched as people he'd never met before took up Sam's work, cross-checking names, making phone calls, and posting in online genealogy groups, determined to solve even the smallest mysteries. For the first time in decades, forgotten soldiers' stories began to come to life. By midweek, the local news caught wind of the project. Reporters who'd once chased Sam for sound bites now stood quietly in the background, filming as volunteers walked through the cemetery, pinning flags and laying flowers at the graves Sam had marked. Veterans from neighboring towns arrived, some in uniform, others in faded ball caps. Family members who had lost touch with their roots suddenly showed up, hands trembling, clutching yellowed photos and discharge papers, hoping to reconnect with their past. The impact rippled out further than anyone expected. Social media blew up again, but this time it wasn't mockery or empty curiosity. Jaden's posts, careful and honest, went viral. Every grave is a story. Every name is a promise kept. One day, an elderly woman named Mrs. Beltran arrived at the museum holding a small box. Inside was a medal and a photograph of her brother, last seen in Korea. She wept as Miss Hargrove showed her the grave Sam had tended for years. "I thought everyone forgot," she sobbed. "But Mr. Davis, he didn't." A group of school kids came to help, led by their history teacher. They spent an afternoon scrubbing moss off headstones, reading names aloud, leaving hand-drawn notes and flags they'd made in class. Jaden watched them, pride swelling in his chest. He realized with a start that this was what Sam had hoped for, not recognition, but a living, breathing remembrance passed from one person to another. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sam recovered slowly. Cards and letters flooded his room, notes from strangers, drawings from children, photos of grave markers cleaned and restored. Jaden visited every evening, updating Sam on the progress at the museum. "They're doing it, Sam," Jaden said one night, showing him photos on his phone. "People are showing up. They're remembering. It's not just you anymore." Sam smiled, weak but satisfied. "That's how it's supposed to work, kid. One person remembers, then another, then 100. That's how you beat forgetting." Jaden confided his worries about the project to Sam, afraid he might make a mistake. Sam just squeezed his hand, saying, "You did the hard part, showing up. The rest is just details." On the following Saturday, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in anyone's memory, Greenwood Cemetery was filled with people. Not for a spectacle, not for a photo op, but for the simple act of remembrance. There were veterans in uniform and families with picnics, teenagers and elderly neighbors, teachers and business owners. Flowers covered every grave, not just Leo Bishop's. Dozens of little flags fluttered in the breeze. Jaden walked among them, notebook in hand, listening as people swapped stories. Some spoke of loved ones. Others simply paused in silent respect. A military choir, hastily organized by Miss Hargrove, sang taps at noon. There wasn't a dry eye in sight. The local news ran a special segment titled "The Archive of Memory: How One Man and a Teen Changed a Town." It featured footage of Sam's old maps, Jaden's interviews, and the museum's growing database of soldiers' stories. National outlets picked it up. Messages poured in from across the country. Offers of help, words of thanks, even funds for a permanent memorial. Late that night, Jaden visited Sam at the hospital, bringing him a folded American flag and a printed copy of the museum's new exhibit brochure, "For the Ones Who Remembered, The Legacy of Samuel Davis." Sam, voice rough with emotion, just said, "You did good, kid. You really did." Jaden stayed late, telling Sam stories from the day. The kids cleaning headstones, the woman who found her brother, the neighbors who finally learned the names behind the markers they'd passed for years. Sam drifted to sleep with a contented smile. For Jaden, The realization came quietly as he left the hospital. Remembrance, real remembrance, was about connection, about ordinary people refusing to let silence have the last word, and just maybe, about being brave enough to care when nobody else does. The morning of the ceremony dawns bright and cool, the kind of late autumn day that makes even the oldest trees in Greenwood stand a little straighter. Sunlight glances off rows of newly polished gravestones. For the first time in decades, Greenwood Veterans Cemetery is truly alive, with sound, color, and people. Sam Davis sits in a wheelchair near the cemetery entrance, a thick blanket draped over his legs, an old army cap perched stubbornly on his head. Jaden stands beside him, holding a notebook in one hand and a wrinkled program in the other. Around them, volunteers and families finish last-minute preparations, placing chairs, stringing up bunting, arranging flowers into massive, fragrant wreaths. Flags ripple from every marker, fluttering in the crisp November breeze. A military choir in dress uniforms gathers by the central path. Across the crowd, the Greenwood High marching band sets up, students nervously tuning their instruments and eyeing their sheet music. Town officials mill about in dark suits, shaking hands and exchanging solemn nods with members of the local American Legion. Even the mayor is present, looking slightly uncomfortable but determined to be part of this day. The turnout is bigger than anyone expected. Over 100 people fill the cemetery, children holding small flags, elderly veterans with canes and medals, neighbors who'd never set foot in Greenwood before this month. A local news crew moves through the crowd, quietly capturing the moment, careful not to intrude. Sam is quiet, but his eyes never stop moving, taking it all in. He's dressed in his best, the same jacket he wore on every visit to Leo's grave, the same boots he'd repaired by hand. His hands tremble in his lap, but his gaze is steady. Jaden leans over. "How are you feeling, Mr. Davis?" Sam gives a dry chuckle, like I'm still waiting for someone to yell at me for walking on the grass. He looks around. Never thought I'd see this place like this. Not in my lifetime. As the ceremony begins, the crowd hushes. Miss Hargrove, the museum curator, steps up to a portable microphone and welcomes everyone. "We are here not just to honor Private Leo Bishop, but all the men and women laid to rest here, some with family, some alone, all with stories worth remembering." She gestures toward the long row of graves, each now adorned with flowers and flags. Today, we remember 53 soldiers who might otherwise have faded from memory. We do this not for show, but because a community is only as strong as the promises it keeps. The choir sings the battle hymn of the Republic, their voices swelling and echoing among the headstones. As the final notes drift away, Jaden steps forward, hands shaking slightly, and unfolds his speech. He stands on a wooden platform borrowed from the high school, looking out over the sea of faces, some smiling, some weeping, all listening. "My name is Jaden Carter. I'm 17, and I thought I knew what it meant to remember. I thought it meant saying thank you, maybe posting something nice online. But I learned that real remembrance is showing up when no one's watching. It's telling stories, even when they're hard. It's asking questions and refusing to let silence win." He looks toward Sam, who nods encouragement. "I used to think heroes were people in movies or history books. But I found out that some heroes walk among us. Some just carry a rake, a flag, a name that no one else will say. Mr. Davis showed us what it means to keep a promise. Not because it's easy, but because it matters." He glances down at his notepad, then back at the crowd. "We weren't just saluting Leo Bishop. We were saluting all of us for forgetting and for having the courage to remember again." A hush follows. The military choir begins taps. As the mournful notes float over the cemetery, Many in the crowd wipe their eyes. The mayor approaches the microphone, delivering a short speech about community, honor, and the healing power of memory. It's formal but sincere. Then something unplanned happens. Mrs. Beltran, the woman who'd found her brother's grave through Sam's notes, rises from her seat and walks to the front. She holds up an old black and white photograph. Her voice is unsteady, but determined. My brother died in Korea. He never got a funeral, not really. I thought he was forgotten. But because of Mr. Davis and all of you, I know now that he is remembered. Thank you for bringing my brother home. A ripple moves through the crowd. One by one, others step forward. A teacher shares a story about her great-uncle, whose name she discovered in Sam's ledger. A veteran in his 80s salutes his fallen friends. Jaden is stunned by the power of these unscripted moments. How grief and gratitude intermingle. How silence gives way to voices raised in memory. At the end of the ceremony, the town unveils a new bronze plaque near the entrance. The inscription reads, "For the ones who remembered when no one else did." Beneath it, smaller lines honor the names from Sam's list and the countless others buried without family. Jaden helps Sam wheel closer to the plaque. For a long time, the old man says nothing. He simply sits, head bowed, hand resting on Jaden's arm. When he finally speaks, his voice is thick with emotion. This is for Leo, for all of them. I never wanted a statue, but this'll do. Jaden squeezes his hand. You did this, Sam. Sam shakes his head. We did, kid. You and everyone else who showed up. The ceremony slowly gives way to laughter and conversation. People linger, swapping stories, tending graves, picnicking beneath the trees. Greenwood Cemetery, once abandoned and forgotten, has become a place of gathering, a living memory. As the sun dips lower, Jaden takes one last look at the crowd, the flowers, the flags snapping in the wind. He feels a deep contentment, tinged with sadness, knowing that this moment, like all moments, will eventually pass. But he also feels hope, because now there are others, dozens, maybe hundreds, who will carry the memory forward. He kneels at Leo Bishop's grave, the earth soft under his knees, and whispers, "Rest easy. We'll keep telling your story." And in the hush of the fading afternoon, it seems as if every name, every stone, every silent promise at Greenwood answers back. As the days after the ceremony roll by, Greenwood Veterans Cemetery returns to a quieter rhythm, but something fundamental has changed. The grounds are no longer desolate. People come not only on anniversaries or Memorial Day, but on ordinary mornings. Neighbors walking dogs, kids riding bikes, veterans visiting old friends. Flowers and tokens left behind do not wither in isolation. Someone always comes along to tend to them, to remember, to keep the promise alive. Sam Davis, still recovering at home, finds his days gentler now, though the old aches and fatigue linger. Jaden visits often, sometimes bringing classmates who want to help. The mobile home that once felt too empty now buzzes with new voices, hands sorting through boxes of letters and maps, scanning documents to upload to the museum's online archive. Sam's cats, once shy, now parade across the laps of visitors, demanding attention and crumbs. One quiet afternoon, Jaden sits on the porch with Sam, the two of them sipping iced tea and watching the sun move over the yard. Jaden's notebook lies open, pages filled with names, questions, and half-written thoughts. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Davis?" Jaden begins, tentative. "Shoot," Sam replies, eyes half closed, savoring the breeze. "When did you start this? Visiting the graves, keeping all those records? Didn't you ever get tired or feel like nobody noticed?" Sam's smile is slow, wry. "Started right after I got back. At first, it was just Leo's grave. I promised his mom I'd look in on it. After a while, I realized there were more. Graves with no flowers, names nobody said. Figured if I could do something, even just for one of them, that was enough. He takes a long breath, the air trembling with memory. Most days, no one noticed. Sometimes people asked if I was family or if I got paid. I told them I was just doing what needed doing. Guess I didn't need anybody to clap. Jaden looks down, thoughtful. Do you ever wish people knew that they thanked you, maybe gave you an award? Sam chuckles. Awards come and go, kid. The men I'm remembering, most of them didn't get any medals. They just did their jobs, lived and died the best they could. I reckon the only reward that matters is knowing you kept your word, even when no one's looking. He gestures to the notebook. It's easy to post a hashtag or say a few words at a ceremony. But real remembrance, real honor, that's what you do when the crowd's gone. It's in the little things, fixing a marker, writing a letter, telling a story over dinner. It's not about making noise. It's about making sure nobody disappears. Jaden scribbles this down, the weight of Sam's words anchoring deep inside him. That week, the museum opens a new digital exhibit, the Archive of Memory, featuring scanned copies of Sam's records, audio clips from Jaden's interviews, and messages from families who've reconnected with long-lost relatives. People from all over the state send in photos, medals, and mementos, helping fill in the blanks for dozens of unmarked graves. The project draws local and even national attention. But Sam remains humble, deflecting offers for interviews with a shake of his head. The story isn't about me, he insists to a persistent reporter. It's about all of us, about what we owe each other. At Greenwood, new volunteers arrive every Saturday. Some are veterans, others just people with an hour to spare. Jaden watches as habits form, an older man who brings sunflowers for the boys from Company C, a young woman who reads poems at each grave, a group of scouts who plant bulbs that will bloom each spring. What started with Sam has become something bigger, a community of memory. One day, Jaden stays late after the volunteers have left. He stands at Leo Bishop's grave, looking out over the rows of stones. He imagines the lives behind each name, their hopes, fears, small triumphs, and private griefs. He understands, at last, what Sam meant. That honor isn't found in ceremonies or speeches, but in everyday acts of care that often go unseen. Jaden remembers a time not long ago when he cared more about viral videos and social media likes than about real stories. Now he feels the responsibility of memory pressing gently on his shoulders. He knows it's not just about Leo or even Sam. It's about choosing, every day, to notice what matters and to carry it forward. That evening, he visits Sam at home, bringing a printout of new submissions for the digital archive. Sam is resting in his favorite chair, a cat curled on his lap. Look, Jaden says, setting the papers on the table. Another family found their grandfather thanks to your notes. They sent this old photo and a letter. Sam's eyes glisten. He reads the letter slowly, tracing the lines with a finger. That's the good stuff, kid. Not medals, not front-page news, just people finding each other again. Jaden hesitates, then asks, do you think it'll last, all this? People remembering, showing up? Sam smiles, soft but certain. Some will, not everyone, but enough, I hope. That's how memory works. You pass it along. If you're lucky, it sticks. If you're real lucky, it grows. The next Saturday, Jaden notices a small boy, maybe 8 or 9, accompanied by his father, wandering the cemetery with a clipboard. They pause at a grave, the boy carefully writing down the name. Jaden approaches, curious. My son's class is learning about local history, the man explains. He wanted to come see for himself. We heard what you and Mr. Davis did. Thought it was important. Jaden nods, heart swelling with pride and hope. He kneels, helping the boy find the next grave on Sam's old map. As the afternoon sun slants over Greenwood, Jaden realizes the truth Sam had carried for so long. Remembrance is not a single act, but a chain. One small deed sparking another, unseen but vital. The value of Sam's quiet devotion wasn't in the applause or the headlines. It was in every person who paused, every hand that swept dust from a stone, every story told at a dinner table or bedtime. Back home, Jaden writes an essay for his college application. The prompt is, describe a moment that changed you. He writes not about the ceremony or the viral video, but about watching Sam on those silent Saturdays and the lesson that stuck, that heroism is often invisible and that the bravest acts are done in the absence of recognition. He ends his essay with a simple sentence, echoing Sam's wisdom. Real remembrance is quiet, and it endures. As Greenwood Cemetery basks in the glow of new life and old stories, it is clear that the value of unseen acts is not in what they bring to the doer, but in what they leave behind, a legacy of memory, quietly carried forward, generation by generation. Saturday morning again. But now it's different, a sense of ritual but also renewal. The light in Greenwood Veterans Cemetery is gentle, warm, painting long gold streaks across the grass. Birds hop between rows of headstones. The flags, once faded and alone, now stand proud, joined by flowers, small stones, and handwritten notes from neighbors, schoolchildren, and strangers alike. Jaden arrives early, carrying a fresh American flag and a notebook stuffed with letters and stories collected over the past month. There's a comfort to the routine now. Unlocking the gate, breathing in the hush, feeling the world slow down. His friends sometimes join him, sometimes not. Some days it's just him, and that's all right. The act has become less about an audience and more about keeping a promise. One passed to him, and now through him, to others. He walks the familiar 27 paces to Leo Bishop's grave. He kneels, replaces the weathered flag, tidies the grass, and sits back on his heels. In that silence, he feels Sam's presence. Steady, encouraging, quietly proud. Sam's health has stabilized, but he no longer comes every week. Time for the next one to show up, he'd said, grinning that lopsided grin. And Jaden does, every Saturday, in sunshine and rain. This morning, Jaden is not alone for long. A father and daughter arrive, the girl holding a bunch of wildflowers. An elderly woman with a walker pauses at the new memorial plaque, reading each name with reverence. A group from the high school history club fanned out among the stones, straightening flags and brushing dirt from markers. The crowd is never huge, but always enough to remind Jaden that the chain hasn't broken. As the morning grows, Jaden finds himself sitting on a bench beneath a maple tree, watching the visitors. He opens his notebook, reviewing a letter from a young boy whose grandfather's grave they had only recently discovered. There's a drawing inside, a child's rendering of a soldier, smiling beneath a sun and waving flag. Jaden smiles, remembering the feeling of seeing his own efforts reflected in someone else's joy, someone else's memory made whole. Later, he is joined by Miss Hargrove from the museum and Mrs. Beltran, who now volunteers regularly to guide visitors. They talk about future projects, restoring more stones, creating an oral history archive, maybe even building a scholarship fund in Sam's name. The work continues, as living memory always does. At noon, a small, informal gathering forms by the central path. Someone has brought a portable speaker, and a military choir member starts singing Amazing Grace. The voices mingle with the wind, settling gently on every headstone. Jaden is asked to say a few words. He stands, brushing dust from his knees, and looks out over faces old and young, familiar and new. I didn't grow up thinking much about places like this. Jaden begins, voice clear. But I learned that memory isn't automatic. It's a choice, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes you feel like no one notices. But what we do here, the stories we tell, the care we show, it matters. It matters for the ones we lost, for their families, for all of us who come after. He looks at the memorial plaque, sunlight glinting on the bronze. We're here because one person cared enough to remember when nobody else did. Sam Davis taught me that real heroes aren't always in uniforms or on TV. Sometimes they're the ones who show up week after week, carrying a flag or a rake or a name. And sometimes, when they can't do it anymore, they trust us to keep going. He takes a steadying breath, feeling the eyes of the crowd, and maybe, just maybe, of those they honor, on him. So if you're here today, I hope you remember this. It doesn't take a ceremony or a holiday to keep a promise. You just have to show up. You have to care. And then you have to pass it on. There is a hush, the crowd absorbing his words, and then a gentle ripple of applause, not loud, but heartfelt, echoing the quiet dignity of what they've built together. Afterward, Jaden finds a quiet spot among the gravestones and opens Sam's last letter to him. The paper is worn, the ink slightly smudged, but the words are as strong as ever. Kid, if you're reading this, I figure you stuck around. That's good. Don't let the world rush you. Don't let the noise drown out what's real. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep going, even when you're the only one left. If you can help just one person remember, that's enough. Pass it on. SD Jaden folds the letter and tucks it safely into his notebook. The message is simple, timeless, a charge and a comfort. The story of Greenwood Veterans Cemetery spreads further. The digital archive grows, people from distant states sending in family stories and photos, inspired by the legacy of one old soldier and the boy who listened. Teachers assign projects about local heroes, families visit together and leave notes on graves, and every Saturday, someone shows up to continue the chain. Sometimes it's a group, sometimes just one, sometimes a child, sometimes an old friend. But always, always, someone comes. The meaning of the place has changed. It's not just a field of loss, but a garden of memory, tended, nurtured, and alive. On a bright afternoon, Jaden visits Sam at home. The two sit together on the porch, sipping sweet tea, the old man's boots untied, and a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You keeping up with your rounds?" Sam asks, eyes twinkling. Jaden grins. "Every Saturday. Got a team now. Even the little kids help." Sam nods, satisfied. That's the way. Not about medals, not about crowds, just about showing up. And one day, you'll pass it on too. The two sit in companionable silence, listening to the distant hum of the town, laughter, music, life carrying on. As dusk falls, Jaden walks home, feeling the torch of remembrance warm in his hands. He knows now that not all heroes carry rifles. Some carry rakes, some carry names, and the bravest ones carry silence, and refuse to let silence have the last word. At Greenwood, a new generation stands watch. The chain is unbroken, the memory endures, and a simple plaque waits at the gate, its inscription catching the last light of the day. For the ones who remembered when no one else did. So the lesson endures, as sure as sunrise, as gentle as a hand on a shoulder. Show up, remember, pass it on.